Hello guys, I'm back. Today I wanted to talk about something that I discuss a lot off and on, but need to just do a video about what happens when you notice the narcissist type, and of course it gets worse. What I'm going to describe as groups of narcissists. When you notice that for them everything must be at a movie quality or it's not acceptable. And I say my little definition of it is at movie quality, because that's really the only thing I could ever come up with over many years of watching this that was a good definition for it. It's like these people are thinking they're in a movie, they're thinking everything around them has to be in a movie, or they're ashamed. It's a shame to them. It's a shame to them if everything can't be like at this certain status. It's very interesting to watch. And of course, some of that could be blamed on our culture of Hollywood, or things being upheld supposedly to a certain standard, and I think that's probably part of the reason, but of course I think the narcissism goes a lot deeper than that. But the example I want to give is a job that I once had, and it seemed to be everywhere I went, there were groups of people who were unmistakably, obviously, making everything stressful for everyone else. And it had kind of become a culture of that. And basically it was groups of young people who were constantly stressed out, constantly stressing themselves out, and as many other people as they could take with them, on how everything had to be at a certain standard that they required. And it was mostly based on bragging rights and bragging and braggadocio. And it took me many years after I left the situation, probably over 10 years, to start putting a finger on what was going on there. And once I started, of course, studying about narcissism, I immediately recognized. But I had described it. It was so strange and ridiculous. And there's so many aspects to it, but I had it kind of described their behavior and how they acted, because part of our job was we had to ride around together in vehicles and from place to place to perform certain jobs at different places. And while we were in the vehicles, it was a constant showing off, bragging, comparing, mocking, putting people down, belittling others, on and on and on. Some of it was like in a sort of playful way, but most of it was cruel and domineering, competitive, intimidating. And it's funny because the ones who got involved with it a whole lot, they worked themselves up and they stressed their own self out. I think they harmed themselves the most. But it's like they couldn't even walk in and out of the vehicle and carry their items and wear their clothes a certain way without getting picked on or questioned, or why did you do this? Why did you do that? Oh man, I moved like this. This is not right. It was very strange. And I was describing this behavior to someone before, and they said, well, maybe they were trying to show off to the women, because it was mostly the younger guys who would act like this. And I've seen groups of women get narcissistic in a different way, where they're cutting each other down behind each other's back. So I'm not picking on men. It's like women get in groups and do it, and guys get in groups. This one job, it happened to be the guys. And the one I explained this to said, well, maybe they were showing off to the young women. And the problem is, like, there were a lot of things they did that weren't showing off. This was more like their own inner dialogue that was very messed up. Now, I believe part of their bragging and part of their arrogance and their lifestyle did have to do with women and having these certain types of women and comparing that and bragging on that too. And I was not involved with all that. But that was like more of their periphery. That was not the main thing. Was the prideful, whatever it is that make narcissists tick would be maybe a good working theory on what they were doing. But the theory that they were impressing the women in the situation didn't really work, because their entire life was dedicated to this. I think it was bigger than just impressing girls. It was clothes, entertainment, equipment, trips, their living status, where they lived, what they had at their house. And this is how a lot of people get into debt and traps and all kind of messed up things. Every little thing they said and did, their toys, their cars, girlfriends, money and jobs, and they would say things like, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't have done that. For example, one of the guys would brag, well, I did such and so. It wouldn't be 5 seconds till somebody said, I wouldn't have done that, I would have done this, and it would have been better. And it was at a ridiculous level, nonstop, constantly, all the time. And a few examples of how it came across for me, I think it would have been a lot worse on me, but there wasn't much that they had to compare or say about me. And they did a lot of trashing me behind my back because I would not play along with their lifestyle at all. And I heard lots of rumors about how horrible I was. But for example, I brought a banana that was probably about 4 or 5 days away from needing to be thrown away, where you have a little bit of brown speckles starting to show on the skin, just a few. And no huge black bruises, nothing like that. It's not a soft, mushy banana. It's just really nice and ripe. And it was strange stuff like this all the time. This is just some of the best examples I could think of. And one of the superiors, you could say, starts dogging me out about how I'm eating rotten food. It was rotten. And just the stupidity. You talk about, they would take someone that's not like them and egg them to start being stirred up because of how stupid. That's the best word I have for it. Just really stupid. The stupidity of going that far. To me, that's an obvious boundary intrusion. Someone who's not eating rotten food and to try to make them feel like they're eating rotten food and there was no political reason for them to do this. I believe from years of working with these people, this is genuinely how they thought. It wasn't like this was a person that harassed me on a routine basis for obvious political reasons. This was actually one of the more helpful people, but he just was really, something was wrong with this group of people. I'm sorry. Trying to make me feel terrible for eating rotten fruit. And the way I am, I tried to turn back and explain to him, it's just now getting ripe. It's not perfectly yellow, and I don't like to eat it that way anyway because it's partly green and stiff and it's not ripe yet. And this goes back to my idea, movie quality. What would you see on a movie set? You would only see the nice yellow, probably plastic sets. It's not real life and it's not realistic. And I got to where I felt very sorry for these people's family and what they must put them through because they were not in the real world and no one can live up to these fake, ridiculous standards that don't exist. And of course, their marriages did often seem to be in turmoil, and not to mention the people they were being with behind their spouse's back. But that would be one example. It was always it wasn't like they were trying to pick on me. It's like they turned their head and gasp. Oh no, something is not matching my movie quality level of life. I have to knock it down. I have to always find something to one up or belittle or mock. And it was completely ridiculous. Another one had a problem with if anyone said anything that wasn't specifically grammatically correct. And these things by themselves, I mean, I can understand people getting a little irked or upset at something not being a perfect grammar. I get that. But I'm talking about a culture and an environment where nothing is good enough, nothing is perfect enough according to somebody's little standard. It's like one of them always picked on someone about not having the perfect grammar or accent, or, if your accent was from a different part of the country, that was a big deal. And to me, that's always been a silly criticism to have of someone, because I've had people mock the Southern accent a lot of times, and it wasn't until later till I wanted to tell them there are people from different parts of the world. There are people with Australian accents and English and British accents, and it's the same thing. The Southern accent is the same thing. The belittling that I had heard was that it was an attempt to deliberately sound unintelligent. And so are Australian people trying to sound a certain way on purpose? Are people with a British accent trying to sound unintelligent or something? You can't just... The people that try to belittle you for having a Southern accent are literally far enough away in the world that they could be from a different country. If the United States wasn't so big, they could be from a different country. It's just silly. It's very silly. Anyway, that's an example of nitpicking, and it wasn't, I mean, I can even understand somebody laughing temporarily at an accent. That's fine. I'm talking about this was a ridiculous bragging culture, stressed out culture all the time over everything. And going along with what I call movie quality, I also have to put in there porn quality, right? Whatever quality that would be. These people, I believe they would watch porn nonstop. And so they were constantly mocking women, like mocking their bodies, mocking their hair, mocking their teeth. And people that were like average to even really nice looking women, they would mock them and criticize and judge overboard, to the point of these people are, they're either expecting or they're wanting everyone to think that they're expecting there to be this super, super, super model quality, a model quality, like I guess someone that would be in the Playboy magazine of like their someone who's probably airbrushed and painted and all of this. And so, people to stay far away from. To me, those are not only wicked people, they're very dangerous in many ways. That's a very dangerous, dangerous, dangerous person. And a lot of their behavior to me was the reflection of very deep insecurities. They had no substance. They had no wisdom, no substance, no wealth, no interpersonal depth. And these are the groups I'm talking about. There were people I worked with that did have those things, and they were separate, and it was wonderful. It was a refreshing breath of fresh air. It was great. And but the people who acted like this, they did not have a good identity, and a lot of this may have come from some abuse in their past, being abused, and the combination of being abused, maybe as a very young child, and then as they come into their teen years and young adult years, what's pushed upon them is the technologically advanced age with all of the outward appearance of things being hyped up. Everything being super styled, super perfect, nothing wrong. None of the bananas have a brown spot on them. Everybody's making awesome income at good jobs, and everything is perfectly in the right place all the time. It's like some people in their mind that does a mind game on them, apparently. And so I chalked it up to a deep insecurity problem with these people, to where the only thing that solved that insecurity is something that would feed their ego and their pride, a certain level of lust and pride and status. And therefore, one minute they were high and bold, and they felt like they were on top, you could say. But then if any little thing came along and threatened, if you want to call that the false ego, for them it looked like it was the entire false world around them that they had constructed, right? If anything came along and threatened that, it knocked them easily off of this fake pedestal, and they were back in the doldrums of deep insecurity. And I think what made it worse was the fact that everybody was egging each other on. It's like they were all together doing it to each other constantly. It was ridiculous. And so maybe some of them kind of grew out of it. Maybe that would be a good thing about it being so ridiculous and obvious. I don't know. But it just seemed like there was a lot of insecurity versus extreme arrogance and pride and just silly, whatever else you want to call that. But anything it was a constant vaunting, a constant competition, because it was unthinkable. It was unthinkable for things to be less than their certain standard that I call movie quality. And it created so much stress at the workplace for everyone, for there to be this constant competing and constant trying to one-up on everybody and snitch any little thing they could see or find, that the stress was just permeating everywhere. There was constant smoking and dipping and swearing all the time about how stressful everything was. And if these people were not so young and in shape, you would probably see constant health problems, constant strokes, heart attacks, high blood pressure, because it was that level of stress. It was really bad. Whenever they were off, they were binge drinking. And like I say, a lot of their relationships did not, if they were married, it was not a good thing, sadly. And like I say, I came to deeply respect the ones who never got caught up with that. Those were the real men. that's where you could you could pick out the men from the boys, if you want to say it like that. There were a lot of real men there. There were a lot of real men who some of the most courageous people I've ever seen, in part because they were not involved with any of that, and they received even hazing and persecution from the ones who were involved with that. And so I wanted to share this example to kind of give you guys an idea of what this maybe looks like in an exaggerated form. I would be very interested to hear if you guys have also worked in a work environment like this. But this is maybe an exaggerated form of these narcopaths getting together and running in a pack, maybe. A certain form of them. It's a very sad definition of vanity and shallowness and meaninglessness, waste, how short life is, and then people have to spend their life like that. And it's very sad. That's part of why I love like trying to teach and doing some videos. I'm not perfect, but any way that we can all share and help each other see better ways to be, because this is so wasteful when it's like this. And like I say, I try to give these people the benefit of the doubt. To me, this points to a lot of the child abuse, a lot of the culture abuse, a lot of the wickedness and evil that's been pushed on people. And I would do wish the best for those people. What I'd wished for them is they could grow out of it. I wish that they would want to grow out of this and be able to see through it and just grow out of it somehow. That would be my hope for them. I have not kept up with them in all these years, but like I say, I would be very interested if you've seen anything like this and what that looked like. Feel free to share in the comments. And so I hope you guys somehow benefit from this, enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe if you have not already, to be sure to stay posted on any new content that I am making. Until my next video, I hope everyone's having a really good and blessed, peaceful day.